Well, hi everybody. We wanted to do a little wrap up of sort of the festival and talk a little bit about how we got here essentially. And yeah, so I wanted to start with I brought Will on because Will's been like with me the whole way, and it basically 10 days ago. I was doing the maths. No, was it 10 days ago? It was the week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. No, that's 12 days. 12 days. So 12 days ago, we were on the phone and there was no festival. And then 4 hours later, we got off the phone and there was a festival. Like, there's an Instagram story I put up that day that was sort of like me tricking myself into doing the festival. Like, it made it legit. Like, I remember posting it and being like, well, now there's got to be a festival. I've told people there's a festival. I'm gonna have to do it now. I also I don't know if you know this actually. So basically, I've been doing the chalkboards, and I'd had this dome that I wanted to build in the garden, and I knew that I wanted a way of like sort of displaying the chalkboards and sort of like bringing the project to a close in like a natural way. So I'd built the dome. I'd sort of been going along with all these things, and in this is the bit that I'm not sure you know of. In this bit, like, I'd sort of written down like a few ideas of what it could be, and so I'd sort of been like, well, it could just be sort of for my family, it could just be this kind of thing, and then I'd be like, well, what would I dream it was, like what would sort of be like the dream scenario. And the dream scenario, I just wrote down the name Daniel Hahn, who is a kids translator and a big name in the translation world, and I just booked him last night for next year.
So what was it that firstly attracted you about throwing a literary festival by yourself, and secondly, I suppose, what stopped you from going after those people to begin with?
So I've always wanted to do my own literary festival, like, but in a sort of way that you think like that would be nice. Like, in a way that is like, you know, like, I've worked at literary festivals and seen the director or sort of like, you know, your upper organizing leadership team of a literary festival and being like, I would like that job. Like, I think I could do that job and I would really like that job. And so, but never in a million years had that sort of gone from like actually doing one. Like, genuinely, like a month ago, like, you could like would not have like dreamed that I was going to do one. And in some ways it's this fact that I didn't have any work at literary festivals this summer. It's the fact that I was at home, and sort of just before we had the conversation, which then snowballed into the festival, I had finished basically all my chalkboards. I was sort of at the point where you like start a new project, and I just didn't really know what there were several different options as to what it could be, and none of them were like sitting right, none of them were exciting me, none of them were sort of like, you know, I just wasn't going ahead with any of them. So I was sort of distracting myself with building the dome, and then I'd finish that and was like, and then basically phoned you. Because we created this like time pressure thing for ourselves, mostly because we didn't expect it to be big. Like, if we'd expected it to be big, we wouldn't have said let's start it on Sunday. We just said let's start it on Sunday, speaking from Thursday, because we expected it to be me talking to my friends and like me creating just book related content myself. And then we sort of, so it was the time pressure of like, I have 3 days to put a festival on. So I just like got rid of some of those inhibitions. You know, like some of those things that just stop you from emailing someone, they won't like me, like I'm a stranger, like I'm reaching out for no reason, like, or just sort of things that make
time to be afforded that kind of, I don't know, that anxiousness going in. The email had to be sent.
Exactly. That was exactly it. Like, that time pressure made everything work smoother. I have like in my notebooks. I have in my notebooks. Sorry, that one's really ugly. Let me just show the pretty ones. I have in my notebooks. I have in my notebooks like the trajectory where I have like a list of original people that I thought I could involve, and like I've got a list of books I could talk about. So like I sort of, because we genuinely did have a conversation where I think you suggested about 5 minutes of content a day.
Yeah. And then we upped it to 12. So the original idea was for Caitlin to speak about one book for 5 minutes. And then we said, well, actually, you could probably do 2 books, make it 12 minutes, because people, 5 minutes isn't a very long time. 12 minutes is something that you can log on and see, every day. You can, 12 minutes is quite a substantial amount of time. And we were like, great, 12 minutes of content a day, fantastic. Let's run with that. 2 books. Doesn't matter that we don't have chalkboards for all of them.
Yeah.
And then, what was the longest day? Must have been
over an hour, like an hour and 10.
And then plus Lawrence on top of that.
Oh yeah, so 2. That would be 2 hours.
2 hours, And that was something that I don't know if you found surprising. These sort of literary world characters much more than I do, but just how cooperative everyone was, and how really, like, people got excited, didn't they? People got excited quickly and wanted to be involved and wanted to talk about the work that they'd done, and were really happy to.
Yeah, it's mad. Like, it's actually ridiculous because everybody turned it around so quickly. Yeah. Like, I'd emailed them on Friday and they would be back, and I would say, like, can you talk to me tomorrow?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, yeah, sure. Yeah. And there was Saturday and Sunday in particular, and then also Monday were like ridiculous. Like, I spent sort of 7 hours in this room, like just doing interviews straight. A good example of how you pushed me was that I kept calling it at the beginning a little festival, a mini festival, a garden festival, a little thing I'm doing.
And also something that you were helping set up was the other thing. You weren't quite okay with being the festival director, and
it was so useful to have you there to push me away from doing that and make it real. So we wanted to talk a little bit about why translated fiction and why we focused on translated fiction. So from my point of view, it was all very natural. Like, it wasn't like I picked to do a translated fiction festival. It was definitely the product of other forces. One had been that I had been searching out and reading, in particular, Latin American fiction for quite a while, and that was like really driving an interest of mine. The other was, as Will and I have spoken about many times, was sort of a reaction to the focus on the publishing cycle, because the publishing cycle makes a lot of noise, and a lot of the books that get discussed all the time are naturally the books that have just been published, and that is how it should be, and that's how the book industry stays afloat and makes money. So whilst we live in a capitalist society, it's very understandable. However, like, that can be quite hard, I think, for a reader to understand what they should read, where their actual interests might be, and what's good and what's bad, and what is sort of like a defining read for them, or where they might find their like interests particularly cultivated. So I think Will and I have talked many times about this, and I think you've actually suggested in the past that you wanted to make 2020 your year of reading only things that were published sort of 50 years ago. Like, didn't you?
Which I have failed at, but yeah, that's a kind of personal, as you say, reaction against the publishing cycle. I don't think something needs to have been around for 50 years for it to prove that it stood the test of time. But I also do know that I've read things very soon after they've been released and been, let down. And I have a big problem with book reviews and book reviewers, and the quotes that you see on book jackets. Because everything's instantly a classic, and everything's a modern classic. before anyone's read it. And books like that do exist. The Plague was like that, hugely popular the minute it came out, and obviously has stood the test of time. But yeah. So many books earn that moniker and actually don't live up to it.
Absolutely. And so it was this kind of idea that sort of like, how can you better recommend? I actually was talking to my friend Lucy, and she was like, I feel like whenever I look at these lists of books, whatever, she was just like, I don't know how to pick books. So these conversations were going on, and then it was that I'd been doing these chalkboards, and I'd sort of latched onto translated fiction as a way of like structuring what books I was going to chalkboard up, and sort of and it was literally off my own collection, because I didn't want to chalkboard anything I didn't genuinely enjoy or recommend.
Yeah.
So when I was doing them as a series of recommendations, so like I think I did novels, novellas, short stories, children, and like a form focus week, which was like in verse plays, that kind of thing. Yeah. Like a way of sort of looking at my bookshelves and being like, well, what am I going to pick, was first of all translated. And then there are also, I think the last thing that pulled it together is that there are a lot of people talking already about great British and English in English writing stuff, and that if you were to amplify and create a sort of a niche group, like, why not translation? Like, it's definitely something we both believe in terms of sort of diversifying voices. I think you had what was your quote that you just said about like reading is a good way to like borrow someone's mind?
Yeah, exactly that. And the idea of borrowing someone's mind who doesn't look, sound, or sort of live the same way as you do.
Yeah, and it's just definitely like, something we were passionate about. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something you said that you've grown more interested in and like have been surprised by the festival, and something that I think I had slightly realised, having been lucky enough to like talk to translators already, is that translators are like so interesting to talk to.
No, absolutely, yeah. That's been the one. This festival has redefined for me what I thought translators' day jobs were, and the level of creativity that goes into being a translator.
It's definitely something we want to keep doing. We hope to have another festival next year. I think there will be another festival next year for sure.
Form and function yet to be disclosed, even to ourselves.
I've actually already booked people for it, so like. So we're definitely so I hope that like you guys are excited by that, and that you'll stick around for next year, which will be in some form and probably some element in which someone can physically attend as well as virtually attend. We're committed, aren't we?
Yeah, of course, your committee is committed. Very literary festival mug.
It is. Actually, Emma Bridgewater is the literary festival mug.
Oh, fuck that though.
No, they all have her. Like, they all have her, like, hey, Amber, they all have, like, limited edition Emma Bridgewater mugs.
Oh my God, I've just spilt my coffee everywhere.
You're fucking wreck. Right, shall I stop recording?
No, because you can put that in the out. You can do like an edits thing. Like a
bloopers reel.
You can do like the making of this very short and fairly straightforward video.
So